Alrighty, so we're recording. One, two, three. Hi.
Hello. Thanks
Alrighty.
for having me.
Thank you so much for your time. I just have some questions to ask you. Okay, so you do have a lot of experience, with regards to getting, like signals from the brain, and you have a lot of interest in technologies that the Neuralink company is working with. So I just wanted to ask you a couple questions, and here are the questions. So, why did you use the brand of detector that you used in your experiments?
Yeah, so back in before I start, please don't refer to me as an expert on this subject. So uh, I'm definitely not an expert. I'm just a normal engineer. But so back in 2013, the project that you're referring to, I think, was using basically P300 Speller,
Mm-hmm.
the P300 Speller BCI brain-computer interface using emotive neural headsets, which is a 14-channel neural headsets. 16 channel overall, one ground, one reference, and 14 channels to use. Back in 2013, the reason we used it was basically its price. The similar, it was wireless. It was very easy to use. It was like plug and play. But yeah, it was, the price was and still is around 750, 800 US dollars. In comparison, the other brand with the same channel would easily have started at $5,000, $6,000 back then. So, and when we used that very narrow headset, we actually didn't think we could we could make a BCI out of it. So we thought that it was only like the signal to noise ratio is not good enough for that. But it turned out to be, it's very good. And around those time, 2011, starting 2011, 2012, we saw that neural headset in basically in publication. And by 2015, we saw that the number of publications referring to emotive neural headset would just become much larger.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Mainly because of its accessibility due to its very, very low price and very easy to use. And I have to say it was a dry electrode as well. So you didn't have, so basically the EEG Nora headsets, they're different types, but you can categorize them in basically two sections. One that you basically wear a cap and then you inject a specific gel to lower the resistance and increase the connectivity basically between, to acquire better signals. And then you have the dry electrodes. These MOTVs actually were somewhere in between. You have to use basically a specific solution that had an ionized solution, which is very accessible. It's basically water and salt, something like that.
Wow.
Put on little electrodes and it would increase the sensitivity and basically lower the resistance path. And it was very easy to use. You just put the headset on and then you remove it, and then you didn't need to wash your head after that. So it was very easy to use. So price and easy to use was the main factors.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much. And what industries do you think this is going to apply for, this technology?
There are basically obvious ones that I'm sure you and your audience are aware of, like brain-computer interface, helping patients who cannot basically do very simple stuff. Let's say you have a patient that cannot even, of course, cannot communicate very good, almost nothing, like they cannot talk, they cannot point. The only thing is that they can just see the world. They cannot even point with their blinking to a specific, to make a gesture. The only thing is that they could just see a world and their eyes would work. You can use what it is called, where you can implement BCIs, brain computer interfaces, using what we call SSVEP, steady state visual evoked potential, um, or P300 spellers with very good ITRs. ITR is information transfer rate. Basically, it means how many bits of information per minute you could deliver, or how much you could say, how many sentences, how many words you could say, how many basically alphabets you could put out per minute or per second or whatever your time is. So the higher the ITR, the faster you're communicating to the world. And yeah, it's very easy to use. It's a pretty good device. Oh, you asked about which industries? Lots of industries. So healthcare, helping patients. These are the obvious ones. Yeah, of course, neuroscience is not that scientific. For very good publication, they do not accept this very device. I'm talking about like Nature Neuroscience or very highly respected neuroscience. But it's because those people have much better like acquiring system, which the cost is like easily 50,000, tens of thousands of dollars. But it will help uh, basically understand the brain in its own way. One, um, are you talking about BCI or this very specific device?
I would say BCI in general.
Oh, BCI in general. So that's much easier to answer. So these kind of systems, specifically non-invasive, let's say emotive and products like this, I'm gonna basically tell you about something you might not know, and that's basically online marketing or marketing in general, and how our, let's say there's a big amount of research and investment is being done, and there are currently startups and companies that are researching how our brain react when we're seeing a specific product that we're interested in, and they're researching how our waveform, our brain changes in order to make products. Basically, it's marketing but at the extreme, and they're not only getting the surveys anymore, they're going to literally see brain signals to see how people react. So that's a huge thing. It's not on the surface. People not may know about it, but it's actually happening, and it's very lucrative business. So yeah, there are lots of applications. There are, of course, defense applications as well. So it's one other thing is, for example, helping people with ADHD and especially children who cannot focus, controlling their alpha pattern, alpha waves in their brain. They make simple games, and they come up with neurofeedback, what they call basically feedback loops, in order to teach children with ADHD to control their brain signals.
Wow, so from what I understand, they do get
or think in a way that they control certain bands of their waveforms in their brain in order to be more focused, or in order to do a task, complete a task. So there are lots and lots of basically applications.
So from what I understand, it's that it detects the information or the signals from the brains of the kids with ADHD, and then sends signals or trigger signals that would help them focus. Is that true?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. For example,
I'm very interested in the feedback loop, because we're actually learning about feedback systems in one of our courses this semester. So I'd be very
yeah. So yeah, I actually was in one of the labs back when I was in undergrad, and I see this. So a specific company back then made this very program, and they make it like beautiful for children with a funny GUI. So basically, there were two worms that were basically they were in a competition, or they were in a race to get to the finish line, right? Yep. And one of them was computer, and the other one was the person that was controlling it. And the person was controlling it. He wasn't the the kid wouldn't like touch any keyboard or do anything. It was just a neural headset on his head, and then he was thinking about he, moving this worm to front. He didn't know what he's thinking about, but he thought in different patterns or trying to do. And when the worm went forward, he said, "Oh, the worm is going forward, so I have to think the way I was thinking." So that's a feedback loop that makes the worm go faster. So if the worm beat that worm that was going on a baseline by the computer, then he won, and they teach the brain to act as a specific way. So now how the feedback system works, basically they acquire the system, they acquire the signal, and you know how you can analyze the signal in frequency domain, right? There are different bands. They call it alpha waves, beta waves, gamma waves in EEG, right? So I know there in literature there are different way of analyzing it. Each band is representative of different part of the brain. There are lots of representation for that, but for that specific task, he had to control the alpha band. I do not remember he had to lower it or increase it, but whatever it was that was helping him to focus more and helping him with its ADHD, they were designing in a way, let's say lowering your, I'm not sure about this, so don't quote on me, but lowering your alpha band in your brain would help you focus more for ADHD. That's just the assumption. So when he thought in a way that the alpha band would go down, they made that very worm to go faster, to beat the other worm. So he would get a prize, basically. So that, yeah, so I'm not hearing you
He
right.
would
Yeah.
learn, yeah. So he would learn
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So basically, yeah. So that's how the feedback system works.
Okay, makes sense. Perfect. And so what are your opinions on the invasive versus the non-invasive method for brain signal collection? So we know that Neuralink is thinking about, invasive patterns of collecting brain signals, and you have worked with projects that use non-invasive methods. So what are your opinions about that, the advantages or disadvantages that you might yeah.
Yeah, it's all about what you want to do and what you want to acquire. So there's always a trade-off. So if you want to go inside of brain, there's you get much more precise data, both at very high frequency, which we call neural spike, and lower frequency, which we call local field potential. There are different way of invasive recordings. You could do ECOG, electrocortico, graphy, and the other one is basically using multi-electrode arrays, using multi-electrode arrays to capture the neural spike and the local field potential. Those give you, if you go inside the brain, you'll get more spatial resolution and temporal resolution. It means you could detect neurons that are beside each other better, and you get the time response better as well. But if you are over the scalp basically is like a low pass filter. I don't know if you know what a low pass filter is. Like in frequency, it's you're just looking at the low frequency of a specific signal. And not only is it low pass filter, it's just a collective of the accumulation of lots of neurons that comes to one EEG electrode, right? Mm-hmm. But if you go inside the brain, you could see by very teeny tiny electrodes that are in the tip sizes are in the order of magnitude of like 10 micron neuron. You could see the activity of 2 to 3 neuron, and by that you could do lots of beautiful things. For example, there are very famous videos you can look on YouTube. For example, what they have done in 2006 in Brown University. You could Google paralyzed woman drinking coffee. That's the amazing video. There's another famous video by what is done in Berkeley, what they call a chocolate bite for BCI. They help a paralyzed woman to catch a chocolate bar and eat it by herself, which was very nice. So these very precise movement, you could use an arm, do this, and then eat something, drink a coffee. These could be done by invasive. But non-invasive, it's you can basically tell the difference between right hand and left hand, or do some other stuff. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not that precise. So there's a trade-off by going inside. You have to, of course, you're definitely gonna damage the tissue, whether it's a brain tissue or the scalp itself. But the question is how much you're damaging the tissue. So by the advent of technology in the last 20 years, and trials and errors on animals, we are definitely, so what Neuralink is doing, in my opinion, is definitely a doable thing. And I think what they're claiming is achievable. I have to say, I come from a background that believe in this science. So there are lots of naysayers as well. But uh, and the reason I believe in this is because lots of the robotic surgery, um, especially microelectronics, has developed a lot, like has advanced a lot. You need, when you're going into the brain, you need to send the send the signals wirelessly, right? Because you cannot have a wire sticking out of your brain for obvious reasons. Then, just to give you an example, if you've noticed, you have a wireless phone and you're charging it, right? When you're sending a data and power wirelessly in a normal application like a phone, the thing gets warm, but you not want your brain to get warm because it's going to kill you, right? And you have to maintain that the 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 power so low that the temperature wouldn't go above the temperature of your brain, let's say 37 degrees Celsius in any way, even at its peak performance. It cannot, when the performance of that circuit goes high, it cannot be like your laptop that it's going to be heated up. So those are challenges. Those are called ultra low power circuits. Those are challenges that has been solved, and it's getting more solved by the advent of microelectronic technology and basically IC designs, fabrication, going to lower nodes. By lower nodes, I mean, if you've heard of like different technologies in IC design, like 180 nanometer, 65 nanometer. Now we're talking about technologies, 5 nanometer, 3 nanometer, very, very advanced technologies. As we go down in technology, it helps us to, relatively speaking, there are definitely lots of challenges, but you could get the same performance with low power. And not, generally speaking, you get much more better noise sensitivity. So a microvolt would be a noise 10 years ago, let's say, but now it's a signal. So you could, in that order of magnitude, so don't quote me on that exactly 1 microvolt, but the order of magnitude. So you get the sense of what I'm saying, right? So yeah, it's definitely doable. So if you're interested in BCI and neuroscience and you want to explore, I just gonna, it's not definitely exactly related to BCI, but whenever I talk about BCI, I cannot not talk about optogenetics, or basically it's a whole new story, but it's been done by one of the pioneers and basically, or the greatest person in the world is Ed Boyden. Yeah, he's Ed Boyden. And he's in MIT in Media Lab. He's developing, he started this thing in his PhD thesis in Stanford in 2006, where you control the brain with light, more specifically. This is, if you're interested, just Google neuroscience optogenetics and Edward Boyden. So that's where we're headed right now. You're mute.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Thank you so much. So that's pretty much it for the time of the interview. I would love to have some more conversations with you regarding some other questions. My teammates were interested in knowing more about your project specifically, what obstacles you had, what you would have done differently if you were to do it again, what kind of books and resources you can give us. For like getting started with this project, but we would have to leave that to another day since there is the constraint of time. But again, thank you so much. And yeah, I hope you have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Ciao.
Bye. Bye.